As the convoy neared the outskirts of Busan, the atmosphere inside the vehicles grew heavier. Every mile brought them closer to the mansion, closer to whatever trap lay ahead. The mole, sitting silently in the second vehicle, glanced out the tinted window at the darkening skyline. His fingers twitched again. Without drawing attention, he angled his body away from the others and slipped the burner phone back out from beneath his jacket. He opened a second encrypted thread, one not used for external communication, but to reach the people inside the mansion. He typed quickly, "They'll arrive in 15 minutes. Prepare the setup. Be in position. Don't let them see it coming." A few seconds later, the response came and it read, "Understood. Everyone's in place. Daniel is ours." The mole deleted the messages, powered off the phone completely, and slipped it into his boot this time. There could be no trace. From the front seat, one of the agents called out, approaching target perimeter. Min Lee leaned forward. "Everyone be sharp. No mistakes tonight." The mole nodded with the others, expression calm, eyes unreadable. But as the mansion's silhouette came into view against the distant lights of Busan, danger was already waiting, disguised in trust, cloaked in silence. The team arrived at the mansion just as the sky turned an ominous shade of gray. Clouds thickened above them, heavy and low, as if they too sensed what was coming. The mansion loomed in eerie silence, too silent. No flickering lights in the windows. No signs of movement. No civilians. "Are you sure this is the place?" Min-kyu asked, eyes scanning the desolate grounds. Min Lee narrowed his gaze, jaw tight. Tang said there would be civilians inside and people who were watching over them. "So why is it so quiet then?" Min-kyu asked, frowning. A knot twisted in his gut. Tang had lied. "Move in," he ordered sharply. The team approached with caution, weapons raised. The front doors weren't even locked. That alone made Min Lee uneasy. It was too easy. The moment their boots touched the marble floor, the trap was sprung. Gunfire exploded and glass shattered above them. Bullets rained from hidden corridors. Automatic rifles roared from the shadows. The mansion's calm facade crumbled in an instant, replaced by chaos and violence. "Ambush," someone yelled, but it was already too late. Min Lee dove behind a stone pillar, bullets zipping past his head. He returned fire at shadowy figures emerging from secret panels in the walls. "We've been set up," he shouted. Tang lied. "There are no civilians." Min-kyu rolled across the floor and tackled an attacker, disarming him with a brutal twist before firing twice at another figure charging down the stairs. "I knew it," Min-kyu said. That Tang guy was not trustworthy. While the two were fighting, Daniel had also sprinted down a dark hallway with just one goal, and that was to find his father. While he sprinted towards the hallway, he didn't notice the shadow slipping silently behind him. As he turned a corner, he halted, then froze. 5 armed men blocked his path. 3 more stepped out behind him. He was surrounded. Without hesitation, Daniel lunged forward, fists flying. His punch shattered the nose of the first man. Blood sprayed. He ducked a blow, kicked another attacker in the knee, then hurled him into the others with a roar. But there were too many. One slammed the butt of a rifle into his face. He staggered, then swung back with a savage elbow. Elsewhere in the mansion, Min-kyu continued to fight like a man possessed. He smashed a lamp into one attacker's face, kicked another into a bookshelf, and ducked gunfire with fluid precision. Min Lee was just as brutal, gliding through the chaos with cold efficiency, taking down enemies in hand-to-hand combat and with pinpoint shots. Back in the corridor, Daniel was losing ground. Though he dropped his 7th opponent with a final blow, 2 more emerged from the shadows. One of them jabbed a syringe into his neck. Daniel reached for his knife, trying to fight the fog overtaking him, but his limbs grew heavy. His vision blurred and he collapsed to the ground. The attackers grabbed him and slipped through a hidden passage before the dust of the fight could even settle. When the last shots finally died out, Min-kyu stumbled to Min Lee's side, panting. "You okay?" Min Lee gave a curt nod, eyes already scanning the hall. "Where's Daniel? I thought he was with you." Min Lee's stomach sank. "Search the mansion. Now!" The team swept through the building. Minutes later, they returned with grim expressions, and Daniel's knife and gun. Daniel was gone. Min Lee stood frozen, realization crashing down on him. This wasn't a rescue mission. It was a trap to take Daniel. And he knew who had set this trap. Kim Sang-woo. Min Lee snatched up his comm and dialed. Lily answered instantly. "Did you find the civilians?" she asked. "There were no civilians," Min Lee said, voice hard. "It was a trap. Daniel's been taken." This was Kim Sang-woo's plan. There was a beat of silence. Then Lily's voice sharpened. I'll inform him right away. Get out of there. Head back to the company immediately. The line went dead. Min Lee turned to Min Kyu. Tell the others to pull out. We're going back to Seoul. Min Kyu gave a sharp nod and moved without hesitation. Icy water splashed across Daniel's face and he gasped, jolting awake as the freezing shock tore him from unconsciousness. His limbs were numb, bound tightly to a cold metal chair. His head throbbed and the dim lighting stung his eyes. Speak! A fist crashed into his stomach with brutal force. Daniel doubled over, coughing. Then he heard the voice that was cold, venomous, and filled with unfiltered hate. You truly resemble that bastard. Daniel's eyes snapped up, and through the haze of pain, he saw a man standing before him. An unfamiliar face. But the hatred burning in his eyes was deeply personal, like he was staring at a ghost that had haunted him for years. The man's face was composed, but his eyes told a different story. One that was filled with rage, betrayal, and obsession. Daniel winced as he breathed heavily. Who are you? The man's lip curled in disdain as he spoke. You don't deserve to know who I am, he said quietly. But what you should know is that I hate you and that bastard father of yours. He began to pace slowly, never taking his eyes off Daniel. Your father took what should have belonged to me. And that sister of mine, she betrayed me, all for that foreigner. Daniel's brows furrowed, confusion cutting through his pain. What are you saying? The man stopped. His eyes glinted with cruel satisfaction. Don't worry, Daniel. You'll know the truth today. After that, you, your father, and that sister of mine. He leaned in, his voice a low whisper. You'll all die. Daniel tensed, struggling against his restraints. Wait! But before he could get another word out, the man calmly pulled a syringe from his coat pocket. Without hesitation, he jabbed it into Daniel's neck. The sting of the needle was followed by a wave of drowsiness crashing over him. His vision blurred and darkness crept in again. And just before it consumed him, he heard the man's voice, low and certain. Sleep well. Daniel slumped forward, unconscious once more. The man, Kim Sang-woo, turned to one of his men standing silently nearby. Get the men ready. Kwame would be going down tonight. The man nodded and walked out. At that same moment, Kwame Williams stood in his office when his phone rang. He picked it up and pressed it to his ear. The tension in his jaw hardened as Lily's trembling voice came through the line. Sir, Daniel has been kidnapped. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He wasn't surprised. It's Kim Sang-woo. He's the one behind it. Kwame's voice was low but firm. Understood. Before she could say more, Kwame added, Inform Chairman Kwan Tae-shik and the Minister of Security. Tell them it's time for the fish to be caught. And they need to be ready. Yes, sir. The call ended, and without another word, Kwame walked out. His footsteps were sharp and decisive. He drove straight to a quiet, luxurious estate on the outskirts of Busan. Kim Yeonja was seated in the garden when Kwame arrived. Her face lit up with joy. She rushed toward him and hugged him. How was the meeting, Kwame? He stood still for a moment, then gently took her hands off his neck. There's something I need to tell you, he said softly. Something I should have told you a long time ago. She frowned, confused but silent. I didn't marry you for love, he said bluntly. At least not at first. Yeonja's eyes darkened. The FBI had been hunting you and your brother for years. You two were always in the shadows, always too careful. But people still got hurt. So I offered them a way in. I told them I'd infiltrate your world and bring your empire down. Marrying you was part of that plan. Her face twisted in disbelief and then in fury. But that plan changed, Kwame continued steadily. Because you changed. I saw you try to leave that life behind. You tried to be better for your kids. I watched you struggle, Yeonja. And for the first time I believed you weren't like him. He stepped closer, his voice growing more emotional. You didn't know this, but the man your brother brought from Ghana to be your personal hitman, the one who killed Choi, Kim, and Song, was my son. Yeonja stiffened. Silence fell. Kwame's voice cracked slightly. Your brother thought using him would drive a wedge between us, and that we'd turn against each other. And he nearly succeeded, especially when he almost pushed him to kill an innocent judge. Yeonja stared at him in disbelief. My brother would never do anything to hurt me. He's protected me all my life. Kwame scoffed. Your brother is not a good man. He got worse after you gave me control of the organization. What broke him was your desire to leave. To him, you betrayed everything. Yeonja shook her head. No, my brother would never harm me. Never harm you? Kwame laughed bitterly. I investigated the accident that killed your parents. Your brother caused it. He wanted the power. But your father saw through him and left the organization in your hands. Also, he was also the one that killed your husband. He didn't want anything or anyone standing in his way. Devastation overtook Yunja's face as he continued to speak. Your brother tried to kill you several times. But your father had planted people to protect you, even before I came into the picture. Kwame gently held her shoulders. He can't be saved, Yunja. All the crimes he's committed, he pinned on you. Innocent people have died because of him. And now, only you can bring him to justice. Yunja opened her mouth to speak, but suddenly Kwame's phone rang. He looked at the screen, Kim Sang-woo. He placed the call on speaker. Sang-woo's cold, venomous voice rang out. I believe by now you know, your son has been kidnapped. Kwame remained silent as he listened to him speak. He's alive. For now, Sang-woo continued. If you want him to stay that way, come alone. No tricks. No police. An address will be sent to this phone. You have 1 hour. The line went dead. Immediately, Kwame called Lily. Tell Min Lee and Min Q to meet with the police. You bring a team here. Min Q will be able to trace me. Don't worry. Yes, sir. Kwame turned to Yunja. I'm going to face him. You need to choose, Yunja. Pick a side. After a long silence, Kim Yunja finally spoke, her voice steady but heavy with emotion. Bring him to justice. Kwame Williams gave a solemn nod, then turned and walked away without another word. That same night, Detective Jang exited his office, coat slung over his arm and car keys in hand. He was ready to head home and unwind from another long day of searching for the murderer, Daniel, until he froze. Chairman Kwan Tae-shik was walking into the police station. He wasn't alone. Flanking him were 3 heavyweights. The head of the FBI's Seoul Division, the commander of the National SWAT unit, and behind them, a stern-faced young man and a middle-aged man with an equally serious expression. Jang's chief came striding down the hallway with urgency, meeting the group head-on. They all disappeared into the main meeting room, the glass doors shutting behind them with a quiet click. Jang furrowed his brows. Something was definitely going on. Moments later, the intercom buzzed through the station. All officers report to briefing room 1 immediately. Jang turned on his heel. The room was packed. Tension buzzed like static in the air. Maps were pinned to boards, satellite feeds flickered on monitors, and intel packets were being handed out rapidly. At the front stood the chief of the FBI, his stern eyes scanning the crowd. Everyone, he began. 10 years ago, a man named Kwame Williams became a wanted criminal in this city. You may believe he died in prison after his arrest. That's not true. His death was staged. A murmur rippled through the room. This was part of a deep undercover operation, one crafted to arrest Kim Sang-woo and Kim Yunja. These siblings are responsible for the murders of political officials, the trafficking of illegal arms, and even human experimentation. For years, they've managed to vanish after every crime. He paused to let the weight of his words settle. Then he continued. You all know the name Daniel Williams. You believe he murdered Choi, Kim, and Mr. Song, and that he even attempted to assassinate a judge. But the truth is, it was a setup orchestrated by Kim Sang-woo. He brought Daniel into the fold to drive a wedge between his sister and Daniel's father, Kwame. Once Daniel was pulled in, he became a pawn. Min Lee stepped forward. Daniel doesn't know the full truth, and his confusion has forced Sang-woo's hand. He's moved too soon. The FBI chief clicked a remote. A photo of Kim Sang-woo and Kim Yunja filled the screen. For years, we waited for these siblings to make a mistake. According to Kwame's intel, Yunja has been trying to leave the underworld. But Sang-woo? He's only grown darker. More ruthless. He must be stopped. The SWAT commander stepped up. Min-Q and our cyber intelligence team have tracked Kwame to what we believe is Sang-woo's current location. We've coordinated with Busan's local forces and locked down all possible escape routes. Min-Q pointed to a spot on the digital map. We believe Daniel is being held in a remote area outside the city. Once Kwame arrives, he'll activate the tracker embedded in his body. That's our signal. The commander continued. Your teams will be split into 3 squads: entry, perimeter, and aerial recon. Lethal force is authorized. These men are armed, trained, and desperate. The FBI chief's voice grew hard. This isn't just a rescue mission. Sang-woo is attempting to ignite a war between 2 major underworld factions in Asia. If he succeeds, chaos will erupt across the region. We have to stop it now. Detective Jang leaned back, adrenaline already pulsing through him. What began as a simple murder investigation had become a covert operation tied to 10 years of darkness. The chief of police stepped forward for the final word. This is it. Everyone gear up and stand by for the location. The moment Min-Q locks onto the tracker, we move. 3 minutes later, Min-Q's screen blinked. I've got him, he said. Kwame just activated the tracker. He's in a mansion tucked deep in the Baigunsan Mountains. The chief didn't waste a second. Let's move out. The wind howled through the dense trees of the Baigunsan Mountains as Kwame Williams stepped out of his car, eyes locked on the shadowed mansion ahead. Without hesitation, he pressed a button discreetly hidden beneath the skin of his wrist. The tracker activated with a faint buzz, and then he moved. 2 armed guards emerged from the shadows. One stepped forward and roughly patted him down. In seconds, they stripped him of his weapons and phone. No words, just a sharp nod between them before one jerked his head toward the mansion. Move, the guard barked. Kwame didn't flinch. Calm and composed, he followed them through the cold, echoing corridors. The silence was thick, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. They reached a pair of tall, ornate doors. Just as the guard reached to push them open. Bang! A gunshot tore through the air. The guard dropped instantly at Kwame's feet, blood pooling fast beneath his skull. Kwame didn't pause. He stepped over the lifeless body and entered. Inside the lavish, dimly lit room stood Kim Sang-woo, pistol still smoking in his hand, a twisted smile on his face. His eyes gleamed with unhinged delight. Just a few feet away, Daniel was tied to a chair, pale and weak, his head lifting just enough to see his father walk in. You finally came, Sang-woo snarled, voice dripping venom. Been waiting for this for years. And look at your son. Carries that same irritating defiance you always had. Kwame's gaze never left Daniel. Still clinging to theatrics, Sang-woo? Still desperate for someone to applaud your madness? The grin faded. Sang-woo's face twisted with rage. You think you've won? That the world will celebrate you as a hero? Kwame stayed silent. My sister betrayed me for you, Sang-woo growled. You stole everything, my organization, my legacy. You turned her against me. Kwame's jaw tightened. No. You destroyed everything. You killed your parents. Her husband. For power. They deserved it. Sang-woo snapped. They thought they could control me, treat me like a puppet. Her husband begged for his life that morning. Even brought up my nephews. He smirked. Made it sweeter. He stepped closer, voice dropping low. You're going to die here tonight, Kwame. And your precious son? He'll watch you die helpless. Then I'll kill him too. Kwame's fists clenched. Sang-woo tilted his head. Too bad your wife isn't here. That would have made this perfect. A surge of rage exploded inside Kwame. He lunged forward and smashed a punch across Sang-woo's jaw. The gunman stumbled back, blood trickling from his lip as he laughed. More guards rushed in and wrestled Kwame back, forcing him to his knees. Sang-woo wiped the blood off his mouth, his smirk intact, and then he struck Kwame again and again. Kwame groaned in agony. You lost your cool, Kwame, Sang-woo taunted. I thought you were the calm one. Kwame glared at him. This was never about me. Or your sister. It was always about your fear of being forgotten. Sang-woo's smirk twitched. He walked over and slammed 2 punches into Kwame's stomach, then raised the gun and pointed it between his eyes. You don't get to talk like a martyr. Not here. Not tonight. Kwame stared him down, unwavering. Then pull the trigger. Just then helicopters thundered above, their searchlights piercing through the trees. SWAT teams rappelled down with practiced precision. Gunfire cracked through the mountain air as officers flooded the compound, engaging in fierce combat with Sang-woo's men. Inside the mansion, the sound of the first explosion shook the walls. Sang-woo's expression turned desperate. He didn't want to be arrested. Spinning around, he backed away from Kwame, his grip tightening around the pistol. They found me, damn it, he hissed. Leave the bastard and protect me. The men released Kwame and immediately flanked Sang-woo. With one last furious glare at Kwame, he dashed toward the rear exit with his guards. Kwame staggered to his feet, breath ragged. Blood dripped from his lip, his ribs ached. But he pushed past the pain and rushed to Daniel. Son, stay with me. He dropped to his knees and quickly untied his son's binds. Daniel collapsed into his arms, weak but alive. Dad, he whispered. I'll always be here for you, Kwame said, steadying his voice. Now listen to me. Stay here. They'll come get you out. Daniel nodded as he trembled, just as 2 SWAT agents and a medic burst into the room. "Get him out," Kwame ordered, and they quickly moved to escort Daniel to safety. But Kwame wasn't done. He picked up a gun from the floor and sprinted through the corridor Sang-woo had escaped through. His heart pounded like a war drum. Back outside, FBI and SWAT officers neutralized the last of Sang-woo's guards. The compound had become a war zone: smoke, shouting, gunfire, and flashing lights. Daniel was being treated in one of the ambulances when Min Lee and Detective Jang approached. "Where's your father?" Min Lee asked. "He might have chased after Kim Sang-woo," Daniel replied. Immediately, Min Lee and Jang sprinted into the mansion and down the corridor to aid Kwame. In the woods behind the mansion, Sang-woo ran, gasping for air, eyes wide with panic. He could hear choppers, dogs, sirens, but what terrified him most was the sound of footsteps behind him. Kwame was still chasing him. "Stop running, Sang-woo," Kwame's voice echoed. "This ends tonight." Sang-woo and his men fired at Kwame. Kwame dodged, fired back, and shot one of the men in the forehead, which killed him instantly. The other returned fire. Kwame rolled aside and fired again, another clean shot. Both men were down. Sang-woo cursed under his breath, "Useless fools," and sprinted harder. Kwame's voice chased him through the trees. "Surrender, Sang-woo." But Sang-woo only ran faster. He stumbled over roots, ducked under branches, until he burst into a cliffside clearing. He had reached the edge of the mountain. Spinning around, gun raised, he shouted, "You just don't give up, do you?" Kwame slowed to a stop, standing a few feet away. "It's over. You've lost. Don't pretend you're better than me," Sang-woo snarled. "You killed people too. Justice doesn't wear white. It wears red. It's always red." Kwame took a cautious step forward. "Put the gun down. You don't have to die like this." Screaming, Sang-woo fired. Bang! Detective Jang and Min Lee heard the gunshot and raced toward the sound. Jang called for medics. At the cliff, the bullet tore into Kwame's side. He dropped to one knee, gasping. Blood soaked his shirt, but he stood his ground. "You took everything," Sang-woo roared. "My power. My fame. I will never surrender." He charged. They clashed like titans, raw, broken, furious. Fists flew. Bones cracked. Blood spilled. The gun clattered to the ground as they wrestled near the cliff's edge. Kwame slammed Sang-woo down as he pinned him down. But Sang-woo grabbed a jagged rock and stabbed it into Kwame's neck. Kwame gasped. Blood gushed as he collapsed beside him, eyes wide as he choked. Sang-woo staggered to his feet as he was drenched in blood. He retrieved the gun and, with a twisted grin, fired several shots into Kwame's body. "That's what a hero gets," he spat. Just then, Min Lee and Detective Jang stormed into the clearing, weapons raised. 2 minutes later, medics arrived. "Don't move. Hands where we can see them." Sang-woo didn't resist. He raised his bloody hands and smiled. "Too late. I already won." Then a voice cut through the place. "I don't think so," Kim Yeonja said, stepping forward. Sang-woo turned. "Yeonja," he grinned like a child. "I won. He's gone." He laughed in her face. Bang! A shot rang out. Sang-woo collapsed, dead. Min Lee and Jang moved to take the gun, but Yeonja aimed it at them. "Don't move, or I'll really shoot. Step back 20 steps." They obeyed. She knelt beside Kwame's body, kissed his forehead, and wept. Then she turned to Min Lee and said softly, "My 2 sons should be given to Daniel. Tell him I'm sorry for dragging his father into this. And tell him to raise them as his little brothers." She lifted the gun to her head and pulled the trigger. Her head fell gently onto Kwame's chest. The medics rushed forward, but she was already gone. Moments later, Daniel, wrapped in a thermal blanket, sat silently in the back of an ambulance. Min Lee and Detective Jang joined him. "Your father's gone," Jang said gently. "And Kim Yeonja, her last wish was for her sons to be with you. She wanted them raised as your younger brothers." Daniel said nothing. He didn't cry. He didn't flinch. "Your father was a hero," Jang continued. "One who will be remembered." Min Lee nodded and patted Daniel's back before they stepped down from the vehicle. As dawn broke over the Baigunsan Mountains, the last of Sang-woo's men were in custody. Peace returned, but it came at a heavy cost. The sky over Seoul was muted with gray as mourners gathered at the National Cemetery. The South Korean flag rippled at half-mast, fluttering in solemn tribute to a man who had crossed oceans and borders to bring justice. Kwame Williams was laid to rest with full honors. His casket, draped in the intertwined flags of Ghana and South Korea, stood solemnly beneath a canopy of clouds. Lined on both sides were officers, Korean and Ghanaian alike, standing shoulder to shoulder in silent respect. Their salutes were sharp, their expressions stoic. Daniel stood tall among them in a black suit, his face pale but composed, eyes rimmed with red. Beside him, Min Lee, Min Kyu, Lily and Detective Jang bowed low as the priest delivered the final benediction in both Korean and English. Then, the 21-gun salute shattered the hush. Each echo rang like thunder across the mountainside, a final send-off for a hero who had died so others might live. Weeks later, in Ghana, the morning sun warmed the porch of a modest but beautiful home in Kumasi, where Daniel sat beside his mother. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves above them. The quiet hum of a new beginning pulsed through the air. From the yard, the joyful sounds of children playing filled the space. Kim Yunja's 2 boys, chasing each other barefoot on the grass, giggling as they weaved between the trees. Daniel's mother, dressed in a soft print kaba and wrapper, leaned back in her wooden chair, her gaze soft and knowing. "So," she said gently, "tell me everything." "All of it." Daniel inhaled deeply. Then, in a voice steady but weighted with emotion, he told her about the mission, the danger, the courage. About how Kwame had gone in unarmed, how he faced enemies who had no mercy. About Kim Yunja, the sister torn between justice and family, and her brother, who never showed regret even in his death. About the final moments in the forest, and how his father had fallen. His mother listened in silence. One hand rested against her chest, the other gripped his fingers tightly. Tears slid quietly down her cheeks, but her lips curved into a soft, sorrowful smile. "Your father was brave," she whispered. "He always was." Daniel nodded, voice barely above a breath. "Yes, he was a hero." She turned her eyes to the children laughing in the yard. One of the boys had fallen but got up laughing, his older brother helping him with a grin. "Although these 2 are not my children," she said, "I will love them like I loved you." Daniel turned to her, eyes glistening. Then he nodded, his expression full of quiet understanding and deep affection. "I know you will." Suddenly, a voice from the yard called out, "Daniel Hyung, come play with us." The younger boy bounced excitedly. "Yes, come on. Come on." Daniel glanced at his mother. She gave him a knowing smile and nodded. He rose, taking her hand and pressing a kiss into her palm. Then he jogged into the yard, where the boys tackled him with gleeful shouts. For the first time in a long while, he laughed truly, deeply, and freely. From the porch, his mother looked toward the horizon, and in a voice barely louder than the breeze, she whispered, "Rest well, Kwame. Your legacy will live on."